Hello and welcome back to the third part of Atomic Habits. If you haven't caught up on the last two, go back and watch those, and then you can listen to this. Although, to be fair, you could probably learn a bit by just watching this one.
But we are starting with law number 4.
That is
the last one. So if that bothers you, then I would go back and listen to that.
So the first episode we covered the fundamentals. How to create a habit, and the first law, which was make it obvious, and then the last episode we covered, what was it? So second law, which is make it attractive, and the third law, which was make it easy. So today we will be covering the fourth law, which is, Jess,
make it satisfying.
Make it satisfying. And then we're just going to go into some advanced tactics, and then finally talk about all the actionable ideas that you can implement. So should we just get straight into it?
Yeah, do you want to take it away?
Okay. So the cardinal rule of behavior change: it is far easier to adopt a habit that is pleasurable, that has pleasurable sensory feedback. So pleasure teaches your brain that a behavior is worth remembering and repeating being key. Whereas an experience that is not satisfying makes us unlikely to repeat it. What is rewarded or enjoyable is repeated. What is punished or painful is avoided. And this is pretty key, isn't it? For any kind of, like, whether it's behaviorism, the idea of teaching a dog anything, like, you want to be able to repeat, or make it easier to repeat by giving yourself pleasure or reward.
Make it motivating to repeat it by seeking the pleasure from it. You got here, the positive emotions cultivate habits and negative emotions destroy them. And we were talking of, and I think one of the key points here was about the immediateness of the reward, because we were just talking before this about how the drinking alcohol, right, causes many negative effects in the long run, but the immediate effects are pleasurable. Therefore, people redo it, and that's not really a problem, if that makes sense. Whereas, if you had an issue straight away from drinking, you're less likely to repeat it. All right, if you taste something that tastes disgusting immediately, you're less likely to eat the next slice. But if you taste something that tastes really good immediately, but later on the effects are delayed, you're still going to keep eating it until eventually, it catches up with you.
Yeah, and it's interesting now, because I can't remember what book I was reading it in, but it was talking about how dogs are trained, and it was saying that as soon as you try and teach a dog a trick or something, you have to give the reward straight away, or have like a clicker that they associate with the reward. So you click it and then give them the reward. Otherwise, there's too much time that passes. So if you left it a minute after they did the desired behavior that you wanted, then you gave them a reward, they might associate that with something completely different with what they're doing, rather than the first action. And I guess we're kind of the same. Like, obviously we can consciously try and link the two, but it's probably much easier if we act in a certain way and then we get a reward straight away. We feel pleasure immediately.
Well, we've got the note, or you got the note down here about this. Our brains evolved for an immediate return environment, food, or brackets, food, sex, shelter, which are primary cues, whereas we live in a delayed returns environment, such as money, status, etc. And I think that's to do with a level of like abstraction, and obviously, with the prefrontal cortex, how we now understand like time and obviously delayed rewards. Our brains now can understand that sometimes things don't happen immediately. Sometimes things take time to progress. But the core of our brain, right, is built off, instant. Like, this happens, this happens, this happens.
Yeah.
This happens, this feels good. This happens, this feels bad. And obviously, it would make sense, like in that environment, that you do this, it feels good. Right, why don't you repeat that, right?
Yeah.
Our brain is calibrated to, fruit. I think what was the theory about fruits and stuff and sugar in general? It was like, because it was so rare in the environment, or this is the working theory, that the reason why we're like addicted to like sweetness of it is because it was so rare, and it's also very energy efficient, isn't it? Or something like that. Or anyway, it gives energy the quickest, and therefore it makes you want to repeat and eat it again as quick as possible. And that's why it's so pleasurable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. I love these kind of paradoxes. These, like, we evolved for this kind of environment, but today's environment is almost the opposite. And the same thing is, like, you value the present more than the future, even though you live in an environment that kind of rewards valuing the future, as in, like, sacrificing things for the now for the future. It's very Jordan Peter-esque, isn't it? Like,
but also is a very human-esque.
It is, yeah.
What do you call it? Very human-esque behavior, isn't it? It's not very.
That's what separates us.
Yeah, I would struggle to find examples, but I'm sure there is plenty. If I'm just not in that sort of space, knowledge space. But the general consensus is animals don't have that ability to stop and pause and basically stop their behavior from chasing just the pleasure buttons or something. It's
no, exactly. Yeah. They don't have the ability to foresee, if I don't go for this now, I can save for later. So if our brains are geared towards instant gratification, then we need to apply this to habits. Habits that are instantly rewarded, like you were saying, are more likely to be repeated. And he set up here just a quote. It's like, make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy, which are the first three laws. Increase the odds that a behavior will be performed this time. The fourth law of behavior change, make it satisfying. So that's one that we're talking about at the moment. Increase the odds that behavior will be repeated next time. It completes the habit loop. I think that's quite interesting, and just it makes you see it as like a kind of cycle, this like 4-step process.
Well, I guess it provides the future motivation to repeat the action again, right? I'm just trying to find an example in my head. I guess it's like, let's just say you're doing something for the very first time, you never experienced it before, like a sporting activity, and you do it and you had an amazing time. That then will motivate you to do it again, right? Like,
absolutely.
I think it's the same premise, but just on a smaller scale, right?
It's so human that it's almost hard to talk about it not being obvious.
Yeah,
okay, you know what I mean? As in, like, it's like
because you enjoyed it, you're doing it again.
Do it again. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of weird to try and pretend like the audience doesn't know it when.
I guess maybe the point being here that it's quite hard sometimes to make. I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, I know you like your vegetables, but I find vegetables really bland, and maybe that's my cooking ability. It probably is in the way I prepare it. But for example, it's not like a massively pleasurable experience. I wouldn't be like, I cannot wait to munch on some spinach again. But I guess some people do, and there's a way, I guess, of making it satisfying or making it at least. I guess there's plenty of ways you can do it, right? You can almost like reframe it in your mind that all the positives you're going to benefit from this. Like if you have like an ideal self and like the ideal self has to eat the spinach, you're like munching, like, oh, I can already see myself on that beach, looking lean or whatever. But I just think it's interesting because the whole point here is we're trying, or with this habit stuff, you're trying to find a way to make something that you might have found previously unsatisfying more satisfying, right?
Exactly.
Because obviously everybody gets that, if something's fun, they're going to want to repeat it. The point is, half the stuff that you're struggling to do obviously isn't fun enough for you to repeat it, and therefore you need to find a way to make it satisfying, or fun, or however you want to phrase it, or pleasurable.
Precisely.
I guess
it's in your conscious control. We're all very much aware that we do stuff that we like, but the fact is that we can make things that we don't like more likable in a sense.
And I think one of the other problems is the things that are bad for you end up being more pleasurable than the things that are good for you. So eating a bag of chocolate is a lot more pleasurable, at least for me, than eating vegetables. And I'm sure it's the same for most people. And it's therefore trying to tip the scale in your favor to get you to repeat the behavior that you don't see as pleasurable in comparison.
Exactly. And this is another one of those kind of like paradoxes. And he's got a couple of points here that, like, for instance, with bad habits, the immediate outcome is rewarding and feels good, while the ultimate outcome / consequences are delayed. Whereas for good habits, it is the reverse. The immediate outcome is unenjoyable, right? Eating those vegetables that you don't like, while the ultimate outcome and reward are delayed. So, they're healthy for you. They help your organs and your body and everything like that. So the costs of your good habits are in the present, while the costs of your bad habits are in the future. And it's one of those, like,
that's a good reframing, to be fair. I like that.
It's weird to get your head around, but actually it's so true. It's like,
even with the gym, if you think about it, like the immediate, like if you're working out, the immediate is painful, especially if you're pushing through you're trying to progress and you're pushing the boundaries. But then actually the afterwards, you get the endorphin rush, don't you? So it's almost like the opposite, where like sugar, you get it immediately up front, the pleasure, but then you get the sugar crash like 10 minutes later or whatever. So it's yeah.
No, exactly. And I think, we're talking about starting a habit in this sense, but I guess as you do this habit more, you can find it more enjoyable, or it's something that you just don't find, you don't dislike anymore. So, those vegetables just become second nature, eat it, like, it's fine. It doesn't make a difference. So I guess they don't become those bad habits, or the ones that are like, have a delayed gratification. You start to enjoy the process more. Right?
I think so. I think you can learn to find pleasure in the things like that are less pleasurable, so to speak, if you see how they fit into the grander goal, and you also see the progress towards the grander goal. Like, I'm convinced if, you were, let's just say you're really overweight and you start eating a lot of vegetables and you started visibly seeing difference in your body within a couple of weeks, in my head, then eating vegetables would then somehow become associated with pleasure, because you would have seen the progress and realized, okay, it's my efforts from doing this. Therefore, every time you eat a vegetable, you might be like, oh wow, like it's almost like I am eating progress. That makes sense.
I like that. Yeah, that's funny.
But I think it comes from a level of like making sure you associate that if the behavior is unpleasurable, the reason why it's going to benefit you, kind of thing. You sell yourself on it, and then it becomes a stepping stone and a block, and it's it's part of your it powers your progression.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's pretty much what one of his actionable steps here. Like, you need to be able to add a little bit of immediate pleasure to the habits with delayed rewards, and a little bit of pain to those that don't. So, just so you're kind of conditioning yourself into liking the habits that you want, and disliking the habits that you don't want anymore.
I'm trying to think of some like actionable ideas that you could do off the bat. I guess you could do stuff like, if you have vegetables, maybe a way of getting yourself to start having immediate pleasure. Like, I think we might have said this before in the podcast. I don't know if you mentioned it before, but he's saying you start off with the immediate pleasure, and then you over time you reduce the amount of immediate pleasure you need. I was going to say you put something like sweet, or like a sauce on it that's not so healthy, but at least it gives you that sort of like bang for your buck in the moment.
Yeah.
What are you chuckling about? Are you thinking?
I'm just thinking like else? You're like eating a vegetable and then straight away like a bite out of chewing on some meat or something.
Or like a chocolate button or something. Just like that. I can't imagine that would go very well.
But yes, no, exactly.
But like, you can start off like that. That's kind of one of the points. I think it's to try and pair it up with something that gives you pleasure at the same time, just so you want to repeat it. And then once you repeated it enough, you will probably have seen the progress from doing it, as well as you built up an identity that relates to the activity. Like, I'm now a veg eater. Like, beforehand I wasn't, but now every meal I have veg, I eat veg. I'm not vegetarian, but it's,
and your identity kind of reinforces it.
And then you get pleasure just from doing it, because it's like who you are, kind of thing. Like,
absolutely.
And you also get a pleasure in my head from overcoming. Like, it shows to yourself that you can actually overcome things that you thought you couldn't, because most people probably start with this sort of habit-based stuff, thinking, oh, I've never been able to do that in my life, I can't do it. Do you kind of get what I mean? You only ever come to this stage, I think, when you've realized something has to change. And therefore, by doing this, you're showing that you're changing, and therefore it's rewarding to do the process, because it's like further proof that you have developed and that you've overcome yourself.
It kind of links to his next point. So he's literally saying that pleasure, can be like sensory pleasure, but pleasure can also be the feeling of success. So like you just said, like overcoming something. So find a way of making yourself feel successful, as the ending of an experience tends to be remembered more than the other phases, right? So it's like, if you feel an element of success, and that's another way that you can implement this like feeling of pleasure, is to be like, okay, tick, I done that, I succeeded at that, I overcame it, I did it. So point here, so you need to find a way of feeling successful after completing a habit, so the delayed rewards can accumulate in the background. And that's quite interesting. It's like, once again, like we're talking about, the rewards are delayed, so we need to have something that keeps us doing it all the time until we kind of fall in love with the system and fall in love with doing the habit. And in the background, those kind of rewards are accumulating. And then it's almost like, once we come out of that illusion, we realize that hard work can be paired with that reward,
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, I think a lot of that, what you're saying there about sort of about measuring the habit and sort of it kind of links into the success as well, because you've obviously, if you're trying to create a chain of habits, if you see yourself again and again doing the habit and you're measuring it and you're seeing it in front of you, I'm going to bring up, like, have we spoken about the habit tracker yet, or like a habit, like the Seinfeld card? Because I think it was Seinfeld, the comedian who he referenced in this book as the example, where he had a calendar and every day he made a joke or whatever, he crossed it off. The whole point is you can then see the progress you're making visually.
Yeah.
A bit like I think we're about to get on to the next point, which is also making the stuff you want to avoid visual as well.
Yeah.
But just seeing that visual progress, like, that's how the measurement in my head comes into fruition half the time. Like, you just being able to see, like, oh, you know, I went to the gym 5 times this week. That's you know, you can see it and you can feel proud that you've done it. And there's many other things I guess you can, you know, link to that. Like, you can do, everything can technically be crossed off in like a sort of, you know, a chain.
Yeah.
Like a measurement chain. Like, if you want to read more books, it's just read for 15 minutes a day. That I've done it today, and you carry on the chain, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how you get the pleasure from it is, you know, I can visually see I've done, you know, this every day, and you feel pleasure when you tick it off, a bit like when you tick a to-do.
Yeah.
Like we spoke many times before about, you know, just getting stuff done first thing, because you start giving yourself that sort of success positive mindset, and it just carries through with like everything you do.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how it works for me, or I feel.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I'm the same. And I think, being able to see that progress, because we're driven by that. And naturally, we just happen to be able to externalize stuff, whether that's through using language and stuff like that. But we're able to actually track our progress. And I remember, isn't it like Rory Sutherland who showed the traffic lights, and how there was like, there was a thing in, I can't remember if it was China or Korea, where when it was like a red light, it was showing a timer around the red light. And so and it made people feel much more at ease, because they knew when there was going to be a green light. And the same thing is like, okay, that's not about like personal progress, but the fact is that we love anything that we can kind of track and see when something's going to happen. And he made a joke. He was like, imagine if you did that with the green, you know, like, you know, when it's about to turn red, so everyone's like speeding through. But
it could potentially cause some serious damage.
But I think
it's true. Measuring. Sometimes
going off the back of what you were saying just before, this point about, like you said, making it visible, making the progress visible. And so with things we want to avoid, habits we want to avoid, we need to try and make them visible. So
but this is the point though, isn't it? It's not visible as in like the cue visible. It's the visible progression of avoiding doing the habit.
Absolutely. So for instance, if you don't want to drink alcohol for a month, then the equivalent would be like, okay, well, normally I spend this amount of money, you know, on a Saturday I'd buy this many pints. So then you put the money that you would have spent on those pints like in a piggy bank.
It's like the alcohol saved piggy bank or something.
Exactly.
And then you made the benefits of the negative habit, like giving up on the negative habit, visible. I like that one a lot, actually.
But I thought about it that, like, you know, your alternative that you use it for must be in line with the person you want to be, right? Because like I found, like, the other day, I'm not trying to drink that much at the moment, and I went to the pub with my mate, and then instead of buying a pint, I bought a pint of Coke, and I don't want to be drinking that much Coke either. So it was like almost like I fell on like a substitute, but actually,
like, at the same time, fine. I've done that before, where it's like, fine, if I'm not going to get a beer, I'm going to get something sugary because I want to enjoy it. I mean, I guess you can do that from time to time, right? But it's, I guess what you're saying is the substitute isn't exactly like a positive one in the long run. If every time you drink, you're just going to drink Coke instead.
I just think it also has to be in line with why, like, I'm not drinking because I want to be healthier, right? So then my substitute needs to be something that is in line with that kind of goal, right? Apple juice.
I mean, even that's not really that healthy. It depends where you get it from, I guess.
Of course. But
just water, I guess, at this point, isn't it? But then it's just life. Sometimes you've got to make sacrifices, I guess. But
exactly, for those future gains. But like we were saying earlier on, you know, once you start to implement these things, you implement these immediate rewards or these immediate punishments, over time you start to fall in love with the process. And then because that is backing up your identity, and then it becomes part of your identity in itself becomes a reinforcer. So
like
once you take away those immediate punishments or immediate rewards, you're still strong enough to maintain it, right? It's acted as like a foundation, and then now it's gone. Which I thought was quite an interesting point, actually, because you've got to fill in the gap between that delayed reward.
Because you got this note here as well, which is like you immediately, when you first start off, is all about, you know, trying to satisfy yourself as, you know, quickly after the habit is done as possible. But then obviously with time, I guess you can almost use it as like a way you try and start spacing it out, right? It's almost like you're going to wean your way off the gratification. You're going to make sure it's just your identity that's driving you now.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting, and that's why I kind of saw it as like it's like you said, weaning off is actually like a really good way to say it. And I made a note here, like slowly start to introduce delayed gratification. You know, if you can make that immediate reward a bit longer, you know, a bit more delayed, so it almost catches up with the actual reward, although that would be very far away. But
depends what the activity is, right?
Like, so it kind of builds that resilience, like progressive overload in the gym. You know, you're slowly increasing that weight or slowly increasing that time or whatever, you know, parameter you're improving at. But yes. So should we move on to the next bit?
So we've got this: how to stick with good habits every day. So making progress is satisfying. And in fact, this is what we were talking about a minute ago. And visual measures like moving paper clips or hairpins or marbles provide clear evidence of your progress. By tracking a behavior, we can spark the urge to change it. Measurement makes our blindness to our own behavior and progress visible. Habit tracking can be used to make a habit more immediately rewarding by making our progress visible, feeding our desire for progress, and giving us visual proof that we are casting votes for our ideal identity. I always thought about this a lot, like how video games kind of, work, where it's almost everything you do in a video game progresses you forward. Does that make sense? So like, you know, if you, I guess the best video games, I'm trying to find one that we've mutually played that Assassin's Creed, the old ones aren't quite the same, but you know, any game where you sort of anything you do levels your character up a little bit, whether it's a skill tree or something else. So that makes every single action meaningful, and you get addicted to that progress. That's what essentially in my head, what video games do is they give you constant hits of like setting mini goals, achieving them, progressing. Like everything you do is meaningful. And obviously everything you do is tracked and often numerized in games. Like you have this many XP points to get to the next level, and that's kind of how you got to structure your life with these habits. Like you got this many habits to do to hit your next level. But just visibly seeing that, you know, if you looked at a calendar, let's just say of your month, and you could see every single day you stuck to eating whatever you said you're going to do, and this many days not drinking. You're not going to want to break that progress, are you? You see it and you're going to be like, oh my God, like I've got like 20 days in a row of not drinking. I've got 20 days in a row of doing this.
It's interesting. I wonder if that's why people love like The Sims so much, you know, because think about it, it's like every action you do in that, you're somewhat building on some kind of skill, right? Normally when we habit track, it's parts of our behavior, not all of our behavior that we're measuring. But in games, it's like every single action is pretty much.
I think it is that.
Like
every single action.
Like that,
Yes. And I think the big thing about the video games though is they are built so the feedback is immediate. So if you do something bad, you know, your heart bar goes, or like your life bar goes down immediately. Whereas if you really think about the realities of that, let's just say you did have like a health bar, you know, everything you do, first of all, you can't measure it like accurately. Like obviously in a video game, you have like 100, it goes down to like 70, you know, and it's all really trackable and easy to understand. But that's literally how we do live, right? We have like a health bar, and you know, if you eat something bad for you, you're going to diminish that a little bit. But the problem is you can't quantify it, you can't see it, so it's not the same. But if you could, I'm sure people would actually take massively different decisions. Like I've always thought like a sort of gaming user interface for your individual life, where like, you know, if you had like those Google lenses, and like literally you had like every day you started with like an energy bar and like a health bar, and then you gave random assignments to specific things. So like you give yourself like veg at +10 to energy, you give, you know, sugar +20, but then afterwards it decreases by like 50 or something. I reckon you'd influence a lot of behavior.
I think
but
so,
you have to program it very well, because obviously, and I guess science changes about what's good and what's bad, and is way more complex than just energy, health.
Yeah.
But I do think if you created something like that, you would get people in good habits very quickly, because you'd be able to see the immediate effects of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because obviously, you know, whatever you eat, it takes a while to digest, and I guess once again, with, you know, get losing weight and putting on weight, it accumulates over time, right? But if you had an immediate feedback of a score point based upon what you're eating, like an apple's 10, you know, chips are -5 or whatever, and you had this whole thing, I reckon people would change, like, because it gives you immediate feedback for the action you're taking, and not just immediate feedback based upon the pleasure of the activity, but on the overarching goal, or, like, you know, the long-term effects. Sorry, it basically reminds you of the long-term effects, because you immediately see, fuck, I did have this much life, but now I have this much life from eating this. And that's the power of it. And I'm sure if anybody's listening and they can play their mind through that, you could probably imagine how that would impact you, because that's effectively, in my mind, what video games do best. It's immediate response to things you do, which then feedbacks and allows you to then change your strategy and adapt. Whereas obviously everything we do in real life, it's so much longer. The stuff is so much longer to hit you. You know, you eat something tonight, it's not going to bother you. Maybe unless you're like intolerant to the food and you might end up shitting yourself, but then you don't eat it again, right? Because there's a painful immediate effect. But most things aren't painful immediate effects. They're like way delayed.
And I think with, like, you know, in real life habit tracking, it's almost like you give yourself the metric is based on you, right? Like when you're in a game, it's like, chips is -5, or like an apple is 5, but actually it might be different for every individual in real world. And so you get to dictate what your metric is, as in, like, this might be much harder for this person compared to this person. But it's kind of interesting, because it's like only by observing your behavior and being consciously aware of how you act do you start to realize, okay, well, this actually is harder, this is easier for me. I'm gonna, you know, incentivize myself. I only need to incentivize myself this much for this one, whereas this one I need to give much more of an immediate award. See what I mean? As in, like, some will be harder than others,
of course, depending on your, you know, proclivity to certain things.
Absolutely.
We're not all the same, right? But I do think an overall standardized. I mean, if you think about a bunch of the stuff that we've had thrown down on us, like calories and stuff, that's just very standardized, abstract things which don't really reveal too much, you know?
No.
Like, you know, the calorie content of a food doesn't really tell us much about the fact that, you know, the same calories of vegetables is a lot different to the same calories of, you know, I don't know, deep fatty fried foods. The calories, the nutritional difference is massive, but the calorie content's the same. So if we just simplify everything to that, I don't know. All I'm saying is you can give simple answers to people, and I think you can influence behavior in a very positive way by giving immediate feedback for their actions, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you can almost create your own little scoreboard for that, couldn't you? You could literally have your own little scoreboard based upon the habits you want to do. So you'd be like, right, I want to do these things. So every day I start at 0, and if I hit 100, I've had a sick day. And then
100 apples.
Like, you know, no, 100 points. You know what I mean? You could even layer on different things. You could have like a development level. You could have like an energy level. You could have like a health level. Like the development level would be like, if I read for 10 minutes, I get 10 points. If I go on my phone and scroll on social media, I lose 5 points. And then you have it. I reckon that would work as a very baseline way of improving people's habits. That would increase people's a lot. And all it requires is you sitting down and like, what do I want to do? What do I not want to do? How could I create a score system? And then how would I just track the score system? And then
and then you're making it more pleasurable. And in the process, you're making, like, habit trackers make you focus on the process more than the actual product, which is really good, because if you can fall in love with the process, then, you know, you're on your way. You can fall in love with
going to the gym, then
exactly. And then it's not
once again, it's a never-ending goal, is it? It's never,
exactly.
Being fit or whatever, or being in shape or being healthy is a never-ending pursuit, because it never ends. And eventually you die. So,
so what's the point of any of this?
But that's just like that's just loser mindset, isn't it?
No, I know.
The sort of, you only live once, so like let's just go out and just inject heroin and just drink everything that's ever existed. Just because you can, because you live once. Like, it's just exactly. It's a non-starter.
Yeah, so off the back of this, an actionable idea is to habit track. We must, one, automate measurements whenever possible, to manually track the most important habits, and three, record each measurement straight after the habit occurs.
Which I always forget to do that one, and I think that's one of the most important ones, because if you think about it, that's where the pleasure comes in. If we were talking about getting that immediate pleasure from doing an action, it should be like immediately afterwards, like done. Like just did this thing, or just read for 10 minutes, tick, like done.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I get hooked on it doing it in the morning. I sometimes forget to like tick them off during the day, but when in like my morning routine, it will like drive me. It's like, oh, I want to tick that off, so I'm gonna,
I quite like the idea of you're not allowed to do anything else in the day until you finish your morning routine. Like you literally just like, I can't do anything else until this is done. Yeah. And then you find yourself at like 9 p.m. just struggling to do.
Good morning. That's funny.
That's a good point that I completely forgot about. That immediate one.
Yeah, I think that is because I don't do it enough.
No, neither. Yeah, I've always let it go on for too long.
Yeah.
Like I'll be at the end of the day, but like, oh, I did that today. Do you know what I mean? Rather than like straight at the moment, like I've done it.
And it's less satisfying, isn't it? Literally, when you take it off at the end of the day, rather than like when you do it, you're like, well, okay, but I've done so many other things that almost gets drowned out. And you don't associate that immediate reward of that ticking off with that habit. So it's not less reinforcing, less repeatable. Another actionable one is never miss a habit twice, as missing one is likely to basically start a new habit, which I think is quite a good, whether it's twice, it doesn't necessarily have to be twice, but as in, I think the more you miss a habit, the more likely you are going to create a habit of not doing that habit.
I do love that rule of never miss it two times in a row sort of thing as a good rule of thumb. Like, the whole point of this is there's always going to be things that happen to you in life where you're not going to be able to do specific things. And it's just like, it's the classic, what's that saying? It's like, it's not how you get hit, it's how you get hit and keep going, whatever. He's like, how you bounce back from getting hit or whatever the saying is. It's the same premise here. It's, you're going to fail at some point. You're going to miss the habit. And to be honest, realistically, there could be times where you're going to miss it twice. Obviously try and avoid missing it twice. But the whole point being, don't let that become a habit of missing the habit.
Exactly.
So
and I
think
think
getting back on it as quick as you can.
What we were talking about in the last episode of like just showing up is better than not trying at all. And sometimes I'm in the mood where I haven't gone to the gym yesterday. I'm not really in the mood now. But even if I just go to the gym and I don't do like a full workout, you're still ingraining that habit because you didn't miss it again. And your mindset is more like, okay, I know that this is serious or this is important to me. Whether you don't just have to do it or not do it at all. I think you can, try and do some of it just to try and ingrain it.
I quite like the idea as well of even doing the habit even when it's hard to as well. I don't know. So for example, let's say you're traveling and you're like, I need to keep up the gym, and you actually like make a conscious effort to do some exercise. You'll be like, this is the person I am now. Like even when it's tough and I can't really do it, I still get it done. Because you're like that committed to this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, I agree.
So what else do you have here? The breaking of a habit doesn't matter if the reclaiming of it is fast, which is what we just said. Mm-hmm. Don't fall into the habit of thinking you can't do something perfectly, then you shouldn't do it at all. It's easy to feel you can track something if you haven't done it wholly. Okay. Yeah.
So kind of what we were just saying isn't like just showing up. Sometimes we're obsessed with like, oh, I didn't go to I didn't do my full gym workout, so can I tick it off? But the fact is, if you showed up and you did something, then that's better than nothing, right? It's commitment towards that habit.
Yeah. No, it was from the Intentional Self book. He was saying the same thing. I mean, he references Atomic Habits in it, but he was literally saying like, obviously writing a book, you just got to write it day by day. And he's like, at the end of the day, a successful day is any day I've put my pen to paper and even written 20 words because I've still made progress towards it. And he's like, as I always celebrated just doing, even if it was like, he's like, stop being like a perfectionist. Don't think you have to write this, write a book in a day. Don't think you have to make all the gym progress in a day. You just got to show up, do the work. And then over time, if you do that every day, you'll get there. It just makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Bit by bit, if the task's too big, a bit like one of the points you're making, I think on either podcast 1 or 2, but the 2-minute rule, where it's just get started in the first 2 minutes. Just if you do that, you'll probably end up doing more than you think.
Exactly, because it's almost like the spectrum shifts on how difficult it is some days, just depending on our state, our mindset or whatever. And then, but if you're even just showing up, then you're still making that beginning bit easier, right? So going back to what we were saying, exactly what you were just saying in the second episode, is that we need to make our habits really easy to do. So even if I'm just showing up, at least I'm making that first bit more ingrained.
Yeah.
Right. So that it's more likely to be better.
Just getting started.
Yeah.
The whole getting started thing, I think is quite interesting. And I think we will get onto the tiny habits at some point. But he talks obviously a lot about the I think it was the BMAP, wasn't it? Behavior equals motivation, action, or whatever. But anyway, he talks a lot about this idea of like activation energy, a bit like the law here, which is make it easy. It's once you get past the activation energy, once you've started, it's like the hardest part, the best way of putting it is the starting. And once you've started, you're more than likely to carry on with the task that's set.
Yeah.
So therefore, the first aim is always just to start. So like the aim isn't to go to the gym. The aim isn't to like do a workout. The aim is to get to the gym.
Yeah.
Because once you get to the gym, you're going to work out. Just like, the aim isn't to write a chapter of your book. The aim is to write a paragraph, because once you start writing a paragraph, you're going to write more. Because the energy it takes to stop doing the task you've just managed to convince your mind to get onto is a lot too. Because once you're on that task, to swap back to another task or to stop, it actually takes energy to be like, right, we've got to think of something else to do now.
Your task switching literally requires cognitive energy.
Yeah.
And it's like we're not really, we'd prefer to just stay on the task that we're doing, unless that task is much easier to switch to. But exactly. So another point here. So it is easy to fall into the habit of focusing more on tracking than the habit itself, because the human mind loves to win at whatever game it's playing. And we were talking about this just before the podcast, but it's so Goodhart's law is when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. And you had the great point of pointing out that we love to gamify things and win at things. So, how else can I measure me going to the gym without actually going to the gym, right? Just so I can get that tick. And so if that thing that is motivating you, right, then stops motivating you. So that tick, right, that tick next to the box isn't really motivating me to do the actual behavior, then it's probably best to find a different parameter to measure. So
a new measurement, or something that maybe complements it, so to speak.
Yeah.
There's, Goodhart's law is used a lot in business, because it talks about, when you start setting incentives for certain things within a business, they often get gained at the cost of other things. So for example, let's just say you give somebody a sales target. It then becomes a bad measure, because the original reason for it was because we wanted to increase sales. But then you realize at the cost of selling people the dream and not being able to perform to the level of what this person's selling, because they're so desperate to get as much money or sell as much as possible, they then make up things. Does that make sense? So the whole point being here, when you measure something, you end up incentivizing bad behavior to get past or to game the system. But at the end of the day, with the habit stuff, I guess you're the only person that you're lying to at some point. But I guess it's just more worth being aware that, maybe you're slipping into this whole thing, which was your to-do was get to the gym. And then you find yourself week after week not doing a properly good workout. Like, that's not motivating you enough. Then you need to find something else, maybe another measure with it. So like, did you go to the gym and then also like a personal best? Do you get what I mean? Like you can add another variable to it, which would then sort of like qualify it, so to speak. So it's like it's like a higher attainment.
Exactly.
Which we'll get into that sort of stuff in the elastic habits, because a lot of that is about that, like where you have like tiered habits. Yeah. Like you've got a lower tier, which is easier to do, then you've got a higher tier, which is really hard, and they're scored basically.
That makes sense. So the last couple of points on this that I've got is the parameter you are tracking is only one of many. It does not account for the whole or the whole experience. If the thing you are tracking is no longer motivating, it may be best to change the parameter, one that gives you more signals of progress. So moving on, so how an accountability partner can change everything. So to break bad habits, invert the fourth law to make it immediately unsatisfying. We are likely to avoid behaviors or experiences when the ending is painful. We tend to repeat bad habits because they serve us in some way, but by eliminating that and adding an instant cost to the action, we are likely to avoid them. Which just makes a lot of sense. Once again, it's like, you're making something painful or unsatisfying. So why would you do it? And if you kind of educate yourself on why you don't need that behavior, then and you apply this like pain, this immediate pain, then why would you do that behavior? It doesn't make sense.
And you got this next point, which is equally as important in my head, which is if you're going to rely on the sort of pain or punishment to change somebody's behavior, then the strength of the punishment must match the relative strength of the behavior it is trying to correct. So to be healthy, the cost of laziness must be greater than the cost of exercise, which is worth knowing.
Yeah,
that it's got to be something that really makes you get up and go. Like if let's just say you were somebody who was really wealthy, and part of your strategy to invoke pain in you is to spend money upon failing to do a task.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to be painful enough for some people who've got more money.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's something that has to be painful to you, and it has to be more painful enough to make you act, basically.
Yeah.
No,
that's a good point.
In general, the more local, tangible, concrete, and immediate the consequence, the more likely it is to influence individual behavior and vice versa. So then you've got this actionable step here, which is the habit contract, which is a verbal or written agreement of commitment and punishments that are given to an accountability partner, to hold you accountable. So, I think we mentioned before in this book, one of the Atomic Habits podcasts about stick, which is where you basically put some money up front and a friend adjudicates your behavior according to the standard you set. And if you fail, the money goes to your anti-charity or something.
Yeah.
Or basically it's very financially related. But obviously, if you're putting up big amounts of money, then this can be pretty motivating. If you put like 500 quid to a K into something and be like, if I fail, you are taking all this money, that will get most people up and going,
Yeah, exactly.
It's gone.
I was trying to incentivize Ben to be like, what was it? I can't remember what habit he wanted to do, but I was like, look, you can pay me £50 every time you don't, succeed at this habit. Like, I'll be happy to take that on board. The thing is, I think we might have a conflict of interest in this scenario.
Yes, but this is the point, isn't it? I think this is the reason why Stick revolves around charities and stuff. Where it's like the person who adjudicates doesn't. Because obviously you can just be like, nah, you didn't do it.
Yeah.
I'll take the money. No, you definitely didn't do it.
Oh, funny. So last couple of points on this chapter. So we tend to follow through when being held accountable because we don't want to be seen as lazy, inconsistent, untrustworthy, or unable to uphold promises. Which makes a lot of sense.
Interesting, because I was just then focusing on the financial stuff, but you're right. There's way more to it. It's you've also committed to somebody who then you just look like you can't even control yourself. If that makes sense, you've got social pressure.
We don't want to be ostracized, do we? Right. Yeah. So why would we make it a commitment and not follow through with it? And it kind of follows through with the commitment and consistency principle and influence that we were talking about. You're taking a public stance. Your social reputation's on the line. So you've got more to lose. And I think, like you were just saying, money isn't a pain for everyone, for someone who's really rich, but the pain that is like our social reputation.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. Unless you're a little hermit, then, you're going to be losing.
But of course, you don't want to look like a bit of not to say a loser, because you're not necessarily a loser for not doing a habit. But if you commit to something and then you don't do it, you do seem like a bit, why would you commit if you can't do it? It's type of thing, It definitely gives you a negative. It gives the person who's you've committed to a negative impression, right? It's never going to be
Absolutely.
Like, wow, he's so great for not doing what he said he'd do.
And at the end of the day, think about it. You're telling someone that you've made this commitment. If you don't follow through, then that person's going to be like, well, I don't trust him with ever committing to
Yeah,
anything
no, of course.
that I'm
Yeah,
suggesting,
yeah.
So yeah, it's like that failure can almost be extrapolated to the adjudicators,
Yes.
and impact their judgment. So last bit, so we also follow through with things when we feel watched, as we want to present our best versions of ourselves. So an actionable step is another way to avoid bad habits is to make them painful in the moment.
Yeah. And before this course, telling you, and I've now got the name of it, of the alcohol one. So to make certain actions painful, there's a thing called antabuse, which is to do with alcohol.
Yeah.
And what it does is it produces an acute sensitivity to ethanol, and it works by inhibiting the enzyme aldehyde, whatever it's called, causing the many effects of the hangover to be felt immediately following alcohol consumption.
That's
so basically, this is a pill that makes you feel a hangover immediately upon drinking, and it's usually used for people who suffer from alcoholism. But I was also telling you about the one that I heard about with the nails. So people who want to stop biting their nails, there's a specific type of nail polish, and I can't remember the name of it. It's really going to bother me.
Yeah.
But it basically tastes disgusting. So every time you bite your nail, you're going to immediately feel the pain of disgustingness in your mouth. And it actually made me realize there's probably a lot of business opportunities just from thinking of ways to make people's habits more painful in the moment. Yeah. But you think about it, think about like dog things, like, there's electric collars. I'm not saying that's for humans, but the whole point there is like an immediate bang, you've done something wrong, you're electrocuted. There's plenty of things in my head. I know it's probably a wrong example for using for people.
No, I like it.
But you get what I mean. There's plenty of ways I think you can, you could basically have, I'm just trying to think what else you could coat your alcohol bottles with like an electric wire, like an electric fence every touch. Do you get what I mean? But there's basically just think of all the things that people do, which they want to stop doing, and then try and come up with creative ways you can combine things together to like stop them from doing it. I think that nail thing's genius. I think that nail thing is genuinely genius.
It's probably a lot to do around like quitting smoking, gambling.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the problem is the market's only as big as the people who want to change their behavior.
Yeah, of course.
And then there's also the people who are committed to it. But I still think there's plenty of opportunities for creativity here as well. Like new solutions to these problems.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think that nail thing is genius. Combine nail polish with something that tastes disgusting, and now you have a treatment for people who bite their nails. It's
I could do with
very,
that.
very smart. I bite my nails all the time. Why I was like, this is a really cool idea.
Okay, so next, last section as well, advanced tactics. So the truth about talent, when genes matter and when they don't. So habits are easier, which is the third law, to perform, and are more satisfying, which is the fourth law, when they align with your genetic predispositions / natural abilities. Our environment determines the success of our genes. When the environment changes, so do the qualities that determine success. Genes do not determine your destiny, they determine your areas of opportunity. And I think this is a very good point from him.
I like that quote a lot.
Yeah.
I've only just, I never took that note, but I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
It makes so much sense. If we have all these genes and they get expressed, well, they're being expressed by our interaction with the environment. So it touches on what we talked about. I think it was in the first episode of this, of designing your own environment, right? With the cues. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that it like acts and expresses the genes that we kind of want. And naturally we have all these predispositions, these natural abilities. And so those habits that revolve around those areas are going to be easier and more satisfying, it just makes so much sense.
Of course. I mean, to be honest, my leaning then when I was thinking about it with the, genes don't determine your destiny, but they, determine your areas of opportunity. I just think of the extreme examples of where somebody's like 7 foot, they're obviously going to have opportunities in like stuff like basketball. They're going to be unreal at these specific activities than somebody who's like a really short, right? Yeah. But once again, it's like, I like the point is it doesn't determine your destiny, because it does to some degree, right? Like it does determine what you could be good at, but it reveals to you your opportunities and what you could be good at, right? And I think another way of thinking about it as well is obviously he was talking a lot about genes, but it's also about what you're currently good at. It's just thinking about where you are now. Where are your opportunities based upon your personal strengths? Like what habits are going to fit nicely into your lives based upon your personal, makeup at the moment, like the context of your life. Like if you're somebody who's played, I don't know, tennis all your life, you're going to be good at racket sports. So therefore, if you're going to have a more active habit-based lifestyle, and part of the habits you want to do is play more sport, you're going to gravitate towards the opportunities of racket sports because that's what you're good at.
Exactly. You want these behaviors to be as easy as possible and as satisfying as possible. So if you already know where you excel in those areas, then it's probably best to, start building habits around that.
Of course,
yeah.
Don't like you said, don't go against your genes, don't go against your personal makeup at the moment. I think it's hard enough to pick up these habits as well, but if you're battling the fact that you're not very good at the thing you're trying to pick up as well, I don't think it's going to help, unless you've got some serious determination and patience.
And some people absolutely do that. You see some people like Roger Federer, I feel like is genetically inclined to play tennis, right? He just seems to, well, not anymore, but it always looks easy for him, which obviously it's not, but I feel like he found his area of expertise, whereas someone else just on like brute force can obviously become successful, but it will be harder.
It's the argument for like hard work vs talent. When you have both, it's like a win-win.
Exactly. It's like a catalyst.
But obviously, 100%. What else did you have here? Personalities.
So our personalities influence our preferences, which in turn makes certain behaviors easier for some people than others. For example, people low in conscientiousness, which is like organization, are likely to be worse at organizing and therefore need to rely more on environmental design. And that's quite interesting. It's more about how, taking this 4-step process and applying it to our personalities, and knowing where to improve along this 4-step process based on our preferences. I think that's probably, because I think some people like, didn't he bring up neuroticism in this? I didn't take the note down, but it was something about being like, more sensitive to certain things. And so those people are more likely to require, I think it was people who were low in, high in neuroticism and low in conscientiousness. And what was saying? I think it was something to do with like designing your environment because your cues are going to be more, you're going to be more sensitive to certain cues.
Okay, that would make sense, right? Yeah. I get what that would make sense. Yeah, but that's a level of awareness. Your own self-awareness comes into play here, and how you respond best to these things, right?
Absolutely.
And this is back to the main point of this, which is finding out what your strengths and weaknesses are, and where you can leverage those to create habits. What do you get here? To figure out which habits are best for you, you need to explore many possibilities, and when you find one that comes to you naturally, exploit it. So you can also ask yourself the following questions: what feels like fun to me but work to others? What makes me lose track of time? Where do I get a greater returns than the average person? And what comes naturally to me? So once again, this is just trying to pick out your sort of strong points, what you enjoy to do, etc. And what do you say this? When you can't win by being better, you can win by capitalizing on your differences. Okay. Our genes do not eliminate the need for hard work. They clarify it. They tell us what to work hard on. However, you still have to put the reps in before giving something up. Okay. I quite like that too, which is, you still got to try it before you give up.
Yeah. And I think it makes sense. And the idea of like capitalizing on your differences, I think that's quite clear. It's like, why try and play the game that everyone else is doing when you don't feel like it's coming easy to you? Whereas that this area over here, a lot of people struggle at, and you find it very easy. It's like I'm doing maths at school.
Yeah. There's it kind of reminded me a bit. It's like, knowing where your strengths are reminded me of the story. I don't know if you've heard it of like Jeff Bezos, because he went to I don't know where he went to uni. I'm forgetting it.
Stanford,
but it was something like that, and he was studying physics.
Yeah,
and basically he said something along the lines of like, he was really stumped on this question. This kid comes into his dorm and like solved this like thing, and then he was like, "Fuck! If I'm competing against this guy, I'm never going to make it in this field. So then he decided to like be an entrepreneur, because he was literally like, this guy figured out something that I was never going to figure out within seconds. He's like, this is the level of what it takes to be, you know, the top of this field. I don't want to be in this field anymore because I'm not going to be the top.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite an interesting perspective on it. It's once again, it's when you kind of realize it's not for you, you move on to something else.
I agree. And I think also, you know, you can combine things to make it specialized, right? So he might have combined, it's like Elon Musk combining physics with kind of entrepreneurship, you know.
Engineering, I would say more so.
Engineering,
like he's like an engineering,
yeah. So like, you may not be the best at physics, you may not be the best at engineering, but may be the best,
it gave him the ability to be good at numbers. And then, you know, that's like, do you get what I mean? He was, everything, the skills were transferable, if that makes sense. And, you know, then you combine the two and you get some, weird mix of skills. Like, you're unique then, aren't you?
Yeah.
Instead of just being, you know, it's like, I remember I can't remember who it's from though. It's like niching into two things.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're the best in the world at one thing, fair enough. But if you're really, really competent at two or three things, you're such a weird amalgamation. You're going to have like interesting ideas and you're going to be like a very unique blend and one of a kind.
Yeah.
Because everybody seems to specialize. And his point was being, if you could be really competent or really like, so not top 5% in these fields, but if you're like top 10% in 3 different competencies, you're going to be very, very useful. Because most people just focus on one thing. And I was a bit like, I think it's Scott Adams. I think it was Scott Adams was like, it was just, it's like a life advice book. And he was just like, if you just focus on 3 things that you can get good at, and then you combine the 3 of them. A bit like we've talked about this before, which is like, you know, if you knew how to do like video animating, but also like to do podcasts or like to do YouTube, you're infinitely going to be more like powerful on YouTube because you can do multiple things that are conducive to YouTube.
Exactly.
If that makes sense, rather than just being somebody who can video edit. But if you can actually create animations and stuff as well, it just, all these things help, right?
Yeah. You combine it until you are the top 5%. In that, you know.
Well, I guess, once again, like, let's just say you're really good at like the graphic design, and then you learn entrepreneurial skills. You can set up your own design business, and then you can add another skill, I guess, on something else. And that's how in my head people end up doing that route. They start with one skill, and then they try and build other skills to start selling that skill, and they end up being this amalgamation of multiple different things rather than just one.
Absolutely. No, it makes so much sense. Should we move on to the next one?
Yes. So what do we have here? We've got the Goldilocks rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when tasks are right on the edge of their current abilities. So a state of flow. Once a habit has been established, so this is practical, it's important to continue to advance in small ways. Behaviors need to remain novel to stay attractive and satisfying. Without variety, we get bored. And this is what you were saying earlier, where it's like, you know, you were using the analogy of the gym. Like every time you go to the gym, you try and, you know, progressively overload, you add more weight. It's similar to that with the sort of habits. You need to sort of be pushing your boundary.
Absolutely.
And I think just going, this fits for some habits more than others. Because I was going to say, you got to push the boundaries with the spinach. You got to really like
I don't want to eat more spinach.
Let's make it 6. Let's go.
I agree. But it's interesting because state of flow. So flow is this idea. What is it? It's
when your attention.
It's like a focus mode or zone where you're like incredibly in the zone. Basically, everyone would have experienced that at some point. But it's like on the bridge of difficulty, just beyond our level of difficulty. And wasn't there something else? It's like, I can't remember the graph. It was like fun and bored or something.
Yeah, it's in between the two. It's where your attention is completely taken by the task, I believe, and you can't really think of anything else.
Yeah.
But it's not too hard to like. So I guess I can give you an example. Like me personally, whenever I hit a task where I'm not really 100% clear on what I need to do, I will then, that's when I pick up my phone, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no way for my attention to be focused because I'm not really sure what the end point is and where it's going. But when I'm clear on what I need to do, so for example, if I'm in a task and I'm already know where it's ending, you can kind of get in the zone, if that makes more sense. And it's that ability where you're kind of clear, you're progressing, I don't know, I guess it has to be that you're clear on what you're doing, you know there's an end goal, and you feel like you're progressing on the task as you're doing it. Well, that's how I describe it, because I find myself in flow more in video games than you can do like maybe in real life. Obviously, when you're doing tasks, you can get into flow. But video games are amazing for getting people into like focused attention.
They
And
really
I think
are,
it is
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And it's literally a level of like, you're focused on the task because you know where you're going, what the plan is.
Yeah.
Like for me, I don't know what with you when you play a video game, for example, you'll get to a point in the game where you now need to figure out the new goals. So like, where am I going next? I'm going to this viewpoint. I'm going to this. And once you know where you're going, you're focused again, because you have to know what the task is before you can even start it. Does that make sense? Like,
and the game is great at establishing your competency level. So you know where you need to go, and then the game can also program the difficulty just beyond your competency. So it's like you've got that motivation to get to point B, but there's a little difficulty in the way, and that makes you want to overcome it. If it's too difficult, it's like, well, then the goal isn't worth it, right? It's not motivating enough. And I think that's kind of when you get into that zone mode, that flow state. And so you can get that with habits, basically. And I think, what was the second point that you said here? So behaviors need to remain novel to stay attractive and satisfying. So without variety, we get bored. And so we need to switch them up ever so slightly.
I can agree with that, because
I was just thinking as well of like, stay interested.
I was thinking, eating vegetables, if you had to only eat broccoli every day, Jesus Christ. But it's like the variety of things you can have within that subset, right? Or like the variety of exercises you can do, the variety of books you can read, the variety of other things, like all of that has a level of variety in it that's like attractive, right? But if you said to me for the rest of your life, the part of the vegetable habit is you have to eat strictly just like a specific vegetable, you can imagine how that could get very boring over time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You
need to incentivize yourself to want to do the habit at the end of the day. And although it becomes automated, what's this point here? So as our habits become automated and ordinary, we lose pleasure and become bored, thus making us derail from our progress to seek novelty. And I think that's actually a really good point, because we are novelty seekers. That I myself am someone who's always off to find the new thing. It means that, I may not stay committed and disciplined. And so if I can bridge the two, so I can apply this novelty to the things that I actually know I need to do and want to do, then then it's the best of both, introducing that element of novelty.
Okay. What else do next?
What's the next bit? So Machiavelli noted, men desire novelty to such an extent that those who are doing well wish for a change as much as those who are doing badly. That's quite funny, but also quite interesting, isn't it? It's like, I do think that is true.
It's a midlife crisis, isn't it? It's the classic. It's why people who are really successful end up, or successful in definitions based that society would decide is successful, end up, being self-sabotaging and wanting, to change their lives. If that makes sense. They always have that sort of, they do something a bit crazy. So the best habit forming products are those that, that's interesting. The best habit forming products are those that provide continuous forms of novelty. If you think about like the newsfeed and TikTok and scrolling, the whole point is each thing's new, isn't it? So you need just enough winning. Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, I was just gonna I completely agree. Social media is so good at that, isn't it? Like that refresh, drag and drop, and it's like everything is new.
It's like they likened it to like the slot machine, didn't they? It's like every time you do it, it's like a new. What's the thing I'm going to see now? And then it's like, oh, okay. And if you don't see something you like, you just do it again. But you need just enough winning to experience satisfaction and just enough wanting to experience desire. Quite like that one. Just enough wanting to experience desire. But where does the wanting come from? I guess it comes from the attraction towards a pleasurable feeling, I guess, or it depends. Once
novelty.
Again,
and then the last point here. So the only way to become excellent is to be endlessly fascinated by doing the same thing over and over. You have to fall in love with boredom. And I think there was a point here that I didn't take, but it was like, that's what separates people who are successful, is that they're able to fall in love with the process, even if it isn't that novelty. Like there isn't much novelty, or there isn't that much pleasure to gain. After, it's almost like you've sapped all the pleasure out of it. And I guess you could go back to introducing immediate pleasure.
Yeah.
Because you're weaning yourself off it. But then I guess if you're falling out of love with it again, then just introduce a bit of immediate pleasure again,
or introduce some variety.
Yeah.
Or pleasurable variety. Yeah.
Oh,
they do the two together.
Yeah. And then here, last bit.
What did you use? So it's the downside to creating good habits. As habits become automatic, you become less sensitive to feedback. You assume you're getting better when in reality you're merely reinforcing the current habit. So habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery. Yeah, I quite like that. It's the idea that you kind of need to be aware of the habits, so to speak, even if they're positive over time. You need to sit back and be like, are these still serving me in a way, I guess?
Yeah. And I think the whole deliberate practice stuff, so it's almost ties in with peak. Remember when we summarized that, and he was talking about how if you just do the same thing over and over again, you improve your confidence in doing it, but not necessarily the ability to do it, which I quite like. So, you may be doing the same habit, but if you're not introducing like iterations and innovating it and, improving upon it, then it is just the same habit over and over again. And I guess with some things, eating broccoli, it's not like you're trying to improve on how to eat broccoli. You just eat broccoli, right? So you don't need to innovate that much, but obviously some habits more than others.
I mean, this kind of leads strictly into the next stuff you're saying. So use a weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annual review to observe your patterns of behavior and establish if you're needing improvement, and then reflect on your actions. I quite like that. The idea that, you need to be consciously on top of this habit-based stuff, but not, day to day, because the whole point is you're just meant to be doing the habits, but every quarter, you should be thinking, are these still serving me the way they were originally intended?
Exactly.
So to speak. Yeah.
And then without reflection, we can make excuses, create rationalizations, and lie to ourselves. Improvement is not just about learning habits, it's also about fine-tuning them. So constantly improving on them, innovating them. And then some actionable stuff here. So you can improve on your habits by asking yourself 3 questions. What are the core values that drive my life and work? So it's basically, what is my goal? How am I living and working with integrity right now? So am I living up to it? And how can I set a higher standard in the future? How can I improve? So it's almost like, past, present, and future. And those kind of reviews allow you to see your progress in the past, analyze it, see, is this working? Is the right kind of habits that I need to be working on? Where should I improve, especially along this kind of 4-step process? Is the cue obvious? Is it satisfying? Is it easy? Those kinds of things. And then how am I doing it currently at the moment? And then do I need to change anything, basically? Do I need to innovate it? Do I need to have a higher standard? And I think that's why, it probably is quite important to check in now and then and try and improve those things.
Yeah. Did you want me to do the next bit?
Yeah, go ahead. So
you got one of the greatest downsides of habits is letting the pride in your identity, brackets that your habits are rooted in, get in the way of further progress. So, e.g., if your identity is wrapped up in a belief like I am a great soldier, what happens when your period of service ends? And then the practical aspect of this is to overcome this, you need to redefine your identity so you hold on to the most important aspects of it. So, e.g., if you're an athlete, it becomes, I'm the type of person who likes fitness. Or alternatively, you could break it down into character qualities. I thought it was quite interesting because obviously everybody's roles in life change, so just you go through life stages, let's just say. People go through careers and then change careers. And therefore you need a re-update of your identity. So therefore the point here being, let's just say you used to be a salesperson, now you're something else. What you should be looking at is taking the key or the core aspects of what makes somebody a salesperson and now applying them to this new identity rather than just still sticking to the older one, because it doesn't serve you as well, essentially.
Which makes me wonder. I wonder if the identity that you should kind of build is flexible to just different environments and different, contexts.
Well, then it should just be about character qualities rather than just.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Less so about the societal words such as, oh, he's a salesperson, he's an entrepreneur, he's an actor, and more so about the actual qualities themselves
that you embody.
Sense.
Yeah.
So you basically you create a more specific identity based upon character qualities rather than like a specific word, or you just create the identity associated to your name of the character qualities that you want. Yeah. So instead of somebody says, you're an entrepreneur, you're this, and you're like, no, I'm Tristan.
Yeah,
I'm not Tristan
that.
Hornack. I'm James Bond.
Yeah, no, I think I wonder if that is the best way to go about it, because that way, your identity doesn't get in the way because you're kind of living by principles in that sense, or flexible qualities that you would, based on your integrity, would uphold in any scenario. They're flexible to any scenario pretty much. Yeah.
I think that would be a better way of doing it,
Yeah. And then last point here. So habits can lock us into certain ways of thinking and acting that can sometimes blind us to little errors. It is important to revisit them now and then to see if they require updating.
So I guess we now have to recap what has probably been the best part of 3 hours and 50 minutes.
I think so. Yeah.
I think just to keep it quick, we're going to stick to the sort of the main framework he gives, I guess, in his book, because he has like a table, doesn't he, which he explains all these.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think the best way, maybe if we do this, we just take it turn by turn. So if you want to start.
Okay. Yeah, go. After you.
Okay. So the actionable steps from Atomic Habits. So we got the first goal, which is how to create a good habit. The first law of this is make it obvious. And the 4 main techniques he's got here is fill out the habit scorecards. So write down your habits to become aware of them, which is essentially jotting down the habit that you're doing with a plus, a minus, or a neutral sign, if I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And then also roughly the other things you can include on that journal sheet is where it happens, the context it happens, and what usually starts the desire, so to speak, of doing the habit. And then number 2, you've got use implementation intentions. So being very specific with where you're going to do the habit. So you will have, I will bracket behavior / habit. So I will do this habit at time, and then in or at location. So you're being very specific with what you're going to do. So I don't know, I'm going to read my book at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning in my kitchen with a coffee, or I'm going to go to the gym at 7 a.m. in the morning at the local gym. The more specific you are, the better, because obviously first of all,
clarity,
calendarize it. Yeah, exactly. And you know where you need to be to do the habit. So, and you know the time. So, every morning at 9 a.m., you're going to read your book with your coffee. Then you've got number 3, which is use habit stacking. So this is trying to combine your 2 habits. So after you do one that you already do, so let's just say you currently drink a coffee in the morning, or you usually brush your teeth when you wake up, which I assume most people do, you then add a new habit immediately afterwards. So after I brush my teeth, I will floss, or after I make my coffee in the morning, I will read a book or read a page of my book. The whole point here being is you combine one action to be the cue for the next action. It's a bit like before, the cue was the time and the location. This time it's like, after I do this specific thing that I always do, I'm now going to add something else to join onto it. And then the very last one for the first law is designing your environment to make the cues of good habits obvious and visible. So I don't know, if you wanted to read a book in the morning, you leave it by your doorstep. Let's just say if you wanted to go to the gym, you do the same thing. You leave your clothes out and obvious for you to do it. So it's basically prepping stuff so what you desire to do is visible and obvious to you where you need to do it. I mean, I guess an even better one then from what I've just been saying would be let's say you're going to read a book with your coffee machine. The night before, you place the book right next to the coffee machine. So upon seeing the coffee and the book, you go, okay, this is what I'm meant to be doing right now.
Yeah.
You could do the same with gym. I guess you could literally put your gym clothes either at the exit to your bedroom, or you could even put it outside the front door and be like, okay, that reminds me, I now need to go.
Yeah.
Although they might be cold. But
yeah.
Okay, that's the first one of making it obvious.
Okay, so the second law is make it attractive. So we're layering stuff on top of all those points that you just said. So use temptation bundling. So to make a habit more attractive, pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. So if I want to drink a coffee, then I can pair, reading a book. So it makes the action of reading a book more attractive because I get to have my coffee as well. You're just making it seem more attractive. Then join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. So it's reinforcing. There's an element of accountability. Like when everyone around you is participating in this action that, is your desired habit, then it's much more easier to do it because everyone else is doing it. Then the third point is create a motivation ritual. So do something you enjoy immediately before a difficult habit. Did we touch on that? I'm not sure we did.
I don't know if we touched on it in the podcast, to be honest.
A motivation ritual.
I think maybe the reason why we didn't is because it was very similar to temptation bundling.
Exactly. But I guess basically, I guess you can argue that like you're doing something that elicits a certain state, right? And if it's a motivational state, then you're more likely to, when you do the thing that you need to do, you apply it to that. And so it makes it more attractive. And I guess an example would be like, for instance, I do a morning routine and I get very motivated after I complete my whole morning routine because I tick all the things. And then after that, then I can apply it to a task that I've been procrastinating about, but actually because I'm in this motivated state, I feel motivated to do it. It makes it more attractive.
It's funny as well because if you look at a lot of what like Tony Robbins, I don't know if you've ever seen some of his work. Like when he does his seminars, whatever, he always does that like jumping around like on a trampoline, getting your body moving, getting the energy flowing, and it kind of reminds me of that a little bit, where it's like you do something to like get your energy up to be able to take on the day or do the task. So it's
I agree.
And then we've got moving on to the third law, the make it easy. So tip number one is reduce friction. So decrease the number of steps between you and your good habits. I guess with this, it's I think we mentioned it before on the longer form of the podcast, where it's like you break down the task. Let's just say you want to pick up a habit of going to the gym. You might realize there's many steps to going to the gym, and one of them is deciding which gym to go to. So you need to you've reduced the steps. So basically, maybe today your focus is to pick the gym, sign up for the gym. Then afterwards, eventually you get to the point where the only step to go and do the gym is just picking the time and day and obviously getting changed and going. The point being, the easier it is to do, the more likely you are to do it. The less steps there are, the easier it is. Another thing you could do, a bit like what I was saying a minute ago, is put things sort of next to the thing you're meant to do it with. So put your book next to the coffee place because it reduces the friction. There is now not a step of me going all the way upstairs to grab the book. It's literally where it's meant to be. You could say the same for technically that's what meal prep is. You've already prepped the meals for the week, so you don't. There's no friction. There's no more steps. You already know what you're eating. You're jumping straight into it because you've done it bulk up front. Then you've got prime the environment. So prepare it's exactly the same. Prepare your environment to make the future actions easier. Master the decisive moment, which is optimize the small choices that deliver outsized impact. So this, once again, I guess you could even say choosing the time and place for when you do the gym is one of the key components to actually going to the gym. Or potentially even another thing would be deciding on the workout you're going to do. Because once you've decided on the workout you're going to do or you have a program, it's a lot easier to follow it than having to come up with the program when you get to the gym. Like you already know what you're going to do. So therefore that will deliver outside results in terms of being compliant with that habit. I don't know. Can you think of anything other than that off the top of your head I'm missing here?
No, I think you touched on it. I can't think of an example, but yeah, it was the idea that, like, when you make a choice, it determines the following choices, the following
Yeah.
options. And so you want to be able to make a choice that produces good options after that, right? So that it's easier to follow. So, if you have two options afterwards and they're both good, then you're winning,
Yes.
so you're kind of restricting yourself to a good environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we've got here, which is probably one of my favorites, which is use the 2-minute rule. So downscaling the habits until they can be done in 2 minutes or less. And this basically means making the habit so small that it's easy to do, but at the same time, because it's so easy to do, once you've started, you're going to end up doing more. So I guess a couple of examples of this, which we've discussed, would be, just going to the gym. And then you could say to yourself, you can leave, but once you're already there, you're going to go. Or even more, even less time is getting on the train to the gym, getting on the bus to the gym, getting to the taxi to the gym. Because once you've done that, it's highly likely you're going to follow through with the rest of the habit.
Yeah.
And then other stuff, which is, let's say you want to build a habit of reading more, or eating veg. A reading one would be read a page, read the paragraph. Something which, if you read a paragraph, you're probably going to continue.
Yeah.
Or if you read a page, it's the same. And with the vegetables, it could be like eat one stem of broccoli.
Yeah.
And you're more like, obviously, if there's more on your plate, you're probably going to eat more. But the whole point is you break it down into something that's so simple. And it also reminds me a lot of what I was been saying to you, which is just like starting something. So
yeah,
I even do it for when I'm working as well. If it's something you've been putting off for ages, let's just say it's replying to somebody on email, just put their email in your inbox and just read it. Because if you read it, you're going to reply.
Yeah.
Because it's up. So it's all about, the whole point of this is all about starting and making it really, really simple to start. And then you got the very last one, sorry, I think it's number 5, automate your habits. So invest in technology and one-time purchases that lock in future behavior. So the examples he was giving of this in the book of making things easy like that is setting up standing orders for your finances. So for example, that it invests £200 into your saving accounts every month. Buying things that will a one-time purchase, which will, benefit you in the long run. So another good example could be, let's say you wanted to get better at sleeping, you invest up front in a really comfy bed that is going to, help other habits off the back of it.
And that kind of ties into that whole mastering the decisive moment, isn't it? It's like,
yes,
it's determining what kind of options are available afterwards, putting you in a good place.
I guess another really good one could be like, let's just say you really don't enjoy cutting up certain foods, buying something which aids you in the stuff you don't like to do. So if you really hate using the knives you have, buy new knives or buy new things. I used to hate garlic. So like cutting up garlic until I got a proper garlic press.
Yeah.
Obviously, most people have a garlic press, right? But we didn't. So it just made everything easier when it came to putting garlic into food, right? It's one of those things that you just buy up front. I mean, I guess another example could be one-time purchase of Tupperware boxes. Not everybody has it, and then you can start doing meal preps.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Beforehand, you wouldn't have had, if you didn't have it, then you could never been able to store your food yet.
Yeah. And then last one, the 4th law, make it satisfying. So use reinforcement. So give yourself an immediate reward when you complete your habit. That way you're making it more pleasurable. You're making it more likely to repeat it. So you want to be able to introduce an immediate reward, and there's multiple ways to do that, which we talked about earlier on, especially with the idea of seeing success, right? We like the feeling of success. We like the feeling of that we've overcome something. And if you can show progress, whether that's by habit tracking, then you're making it more satisfying. You're adding that extra layer to that habit. Number 2, make doing nothing enjoyable. So when avoiding a bad habit, design a way to see the benefits. So I think we came up with an example earlier on. So for instance, if I'm quitting drinking alcohol, then if I was to go to the pub every week and spend a certain amount, then I can put that aside and save up for something else, something that is in line with the kind of identity that I'm pursuing. Number 3, use a habit tracker. So keep track of your habit streak and don't break the chain. I think one of which is the next one as well. So never miss twice. That way you're not creating a habit that breaks your habit. And it's important to stay on top of that. And also that you don't become obsessed with the tracker. If the tracker is no longer motivating that behavior, that habit, then it's probably best to stop using that tracker or to add a new kind of parameter that you're going to measure. And that way it can motivate you once again. And yes, yeah, that's
so those are all the laws of creating habits or creating a good habit.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna quickly move on to the inverse of all these laws. So this is the tips and tricks to break bad habits.
Yeah.
So you've got the inversion of the first law. So the first law was make it obvious, and the inversion is make it invisible. So the first point here is reduce the exposure to the habit. So I guess, for example, if you know your main exposure to drinking, let's say, is alcohol, you want to avoid drinking alcohol, reduce the exposure you have to events where alcohol drinking is the norm, would be a classic one. Another example, I guess, could be something like if you know you're eating lots of sweets or chocolate, not buying it in the first place, and therefore the exposure of it not being in a kitchen means you're not going to eat it.
Yeah.
And then you've got the second one, which is very similar. So remove the cues of your bad habits from your environment. So let's say you still want to keep the chocolate for a rainy day. You just put it in the back of your cupboard so it's not visible.
Yeah.
Well, not in the cupboard because it'd probably melt. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not... it's harder to see and therefore remind you that it exists and prompt the sort of, the desire to eat it. Or if it's the same with alcohol or any bad habit like that. They're very linked. I mean, what you say?
I was going to say, I actually love coming across stuff that I've completely forgotten about.
Yeah,
it's actually amazing. When you like purposely put something away and then you forget about it for ages, and then you happen to find it at like the most optimal time.
I know what you mean. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, once again, these 2 points are very similar. The whole point here is just, hide the cues of the bad habits, or reduce your exposure to events or contexts that cause you to do the habit. So, for example, if I bite my nails when I drive less. I mean, I know that's not really a solution for most people, but it's one of those things where if you know this is an environment where you do the habit a lot, try and reduce the amount of times you're in that environment.
Yeah. And then the inversion of the second law, make it unattractive. These 2 points are pretty much hand in hand. So reframe your mindset and highlight the benefits of avoiding your bad habits. So kind of like what we were talking about in the second episode. So educate yourself on, if you want to convince yourself that something is bad, look up the bad stuff about it. That way it will convince you, because you'll have this imbalance of information that is like, you only know all the negatives about this and it outweighs the positives of it. And the same thing with like emphasizing the bad aspects of it, of any kind of habit, whether that's like doing the actual habit or what the consequences of the habits are. All of these help reframe how you perceive the habit and make it more unattractive.
Cool. And then we've got the inversion of the third law, which was, I believe, make it easy. And this inversion is called make it difficult. And the very first part is increase friction. So this, once again, is adding extra steps. So, for example, let's just say you don't want to use your phone, you throw it in another room. The friction is I have to get up and walk towards it to pick it up to use it. You're therefore less likely to pick it up and scroll, because there's a friction, there's a step of having to move and do something. You got a very similar point here, which is increase the number of steps between you and your bad habits. Once again, it's the same premise. It's try and create effort between you and the thing you were doing, whether it's locking away specific things. Like I think I was telling you the other day about those timer boxes, or maybe I wasn't. You can buy those containers where you put like a timer at the top and you put your phone in it, or you can put cigarettes in it or whatever, slam it down, put a timer on for like 2 hours, and that's gonna add a step to doing something.
It's the same thing with that OneSec app.
Yes. Which and that app essentially just creates a barrier. So anytime you open the chosen app you don't want to use as much, so let's just say it's Instagram, it automatically pauses for about. You can program it to change the amount of time. So I think the default is 6 seconds, but you can even go up to a minute. So basically, as soon as you open the app, it then pauses your phone for like a minute, being like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" The point being that it creates an extra step, a barrier to doing the habit.
Yeah.
And then you've got number 3, so using a commitment device. And this again is where you basically say, I am not going to do something. And then if you do it, you've admitted publicly that you're not going to do it. And therefore the pain or the social anxiety of, not doing something you said you're going to do forces you to keep it up and not do the bad habit.
Yeah.
And then you've got number 4, restrict your future choices to the ones that benefit you. I'm trying to think, what restrict your future choices to the ones that benefit you. What can you remember what that was about? Because I'm struggling to get my head around that.
Restricting the
your future choices to the ones that benefit you.
I guess it's like, I guess it's kind of the inverse of the ones that we talk about with the decisive moments, mastering the decisive moments. Because once again, if you act now, that it restricts your options later on, so you can't even engage in the bad habits. So he had an example. What was it? Bollocks. There was a good one. Oh yeah. So for instance, his when he went to like a restaurant and he would ask for them to halve the meal before it even came out, right? So he makes the decision early so that he can't actually eat half of his meal, right?
Yes. Okay.
And so those things, basically you're acting in prior to
yes. I guess you could even say something along the lines of, you could do that when you're at home as well. When you cook, you immediately put half the portions into the fridge for tomorrow's lunch. Or anything like that, which cuts portion size down or whatever. So I get that now. It's So you take action in the moment before you get taken away by desire. Like if you put all the food on your plate, it's highly likely you're going to eat it all. Whereas if you upfront decide not to serve yourself the whole amount, the effort to get up and
exactly, it creates friction and everything like that.
Okay, cool. I get that now.
And then lastly, inversion of the 4th law, which was make it satisfying, is make it unsatisfying. So get an accountability partner. So that way, you make contract with someone else. And if you don't succeed in doing your habits, then you're letting them down. You're also putting your reputation on the line. You're making yourself seem inconsistent or untrustworthy, or all these like multiple things that come into being around like ourselves and how people perceive us on the line. Second point is ask someone to watch your behavior. So we're more likely to, let's say you don't have a friend around you, although I don't know why you would randomly ask a stranger, but you might. And because we like to put our best self forward. So if we feel like we're being watched, then we're more likely to follow through with our action. It's why they have all those cameras and when you go to like a Tesco and it's the self-service and the camera literally films you and you see yourself. And it's like you're less likely to steal because you think you're being watched. And then last bit here is create a habit contract. So make the costs of your bad habits public and painful. So kind of what I was saying already. You make a contract. You say, this is what happens if I don't succeed in doing this habit. And we talked about Stick, which is I think it's a website where you can like put money. You can put money aside and they'll send it to a charity that you don't want if you don't succeed in it, and you have to get it verified, whether that's by a friend or someone. But all of this basically keeps you accountable, and so
I believe that's all of them.
So that was Atomic Habits by James Clear. We will be writing up all the actionable stuff that you can implement if you would like. And you can find that on the website at wisewords.blog. And I think that's everything that I have to say about this one.
That is everything. That was a very, very long podcast, but worth the listen, if I may say so myself.
So next week we will be doing the Now Habit by
Neil Fior, I think.
I hope so.
1 second. Yeah,
If
it's
not,
nil
we
fuel.
can correct it next week. So stay
followed
tuned.
by a bunch of other books. So we've got the 7
Yes.
Habits of Highly Effective People, Tiny Habits, Elastic Habits. It's coming thick and fast.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you stay tuned, subscribe, and we'll catch you next week.
Bye. See you.
Hey guys, well there you have it. We hope you enjoyed that book summary. Now we know it can be a lot to take in all at once, so if you want to be able to read this in a more palatable size, or you want to be able to implement any of those key actionable ideas that we were talking about in this episode, head on over to our website at wisewords.blog, where the book summary will be waiting for you. Also, don't forget to check out our socials, as we consistently upload the key ideas, benefits, and actionable ideas from all the books that we read. The links to those will be in the description below. Now, we want to be able to get you the best content in a way that's really easy to understand, but we need your help. Your opinion matters. So you are our feedback mechanism. And with those quick actions, whether that's leaving us a like or a dislike, commenting in the comment section below, or subscribing to our channel, all of those help us gauge what we're doing well and how to improve on our method of delivery. So if you have any thoughts on the matter, don't hesitate to act. It takes less than 10 seconds and it really helps us out. But with all that being said, until next time, stay wise.